Hello, hello. Are we plugged in? Yes, awesome. For once, I remembered to plug it in. Hello, everyone. Come say hi, Gandhi. Come here. Yeah? Come here. Come on, Slowpoke. Come on. Come here. Hello, Rabami. Welcome. Come here, kitty. Oh, he's being shy. Since when are you shy? Hello, everyone. We'll give it a few minutes and see who shows up. Hello, Marlon and Levi. And the Queen. Sorry, you'll have to miss it, but it will go up probably tomorrow morning as an archive. Today will be the last Dante episode of Fanfic Friday. Hello, Lobsel. We will do this again, but for October, it'll take a little break as we'll transition into some more horror-themed things. Probably some short stories and things like that, rather than fanfic, but we'll come back to this. But yeah, today's the last one of Dante. The last of Christine and Dante's epic, excellent adventure. It's not exactly what it is, but sure, why not? Oh, man, what a journey we've been on. So many things have happened. So many horrible, terrible things. Hello, Diana. Let's see. She got a job at a pizza place to meet Dante, and then she lost the job, but she moved in with Dante, so that was good. Her grandfather was a weird old mafia man who tried to control her, and she ran away. And then she and Dante had dinner together. Oh, and there's also a demon, and this demon wants some kind of treasure from a museum, and he's been stalking our main character. I think that's all the threads we have going on right now, the many myriad interwoven threads that I will not pull together well because I wrote this story when I was 15. Oh boy. I will not torment you with anything of the kind, Diana, for sure. Especially because I didn't write that back then at all. No. Was not. Well, okay, I did sometimes when I was younger, and then I got so embarrassed over it, I just didn't bring myself to do it for quite some time. So, no, this story does not end that way. But, oh, man. Hey, Lunar, welcome. I guess we can go ahead and get started, as much as I'm loath to do so. How about now? Now I'll write whatever. If it fits the story, it fits the story, if you know what I mean. Sure, I will write most anything. Asterisk, most anything. Yeah, I'm not prudish or anything. If it's a good story, then I like it. It's basically, you know. Let's see here. We are on chapter 10 of the pizza story. Last time it ended with Dante and Christine being in the middle of a dinner date, and that is where we will pick up here. Dante and Christine had diner together and talked amiably. I say diner because I forgot to put the other N in the word, so they had diner together. Afterwards came dessert, chocolate for Christine, pizza for Dante, and then Dante assisted Christine with the dishes. Both people had enjoyed themselves greatly and seemed to be walking about in a bubble of happiness, permanent grins on their grins. Oh, God. Permanent grins on their grins. You know when you grin so hard you have a grin on your grin? That's what they're doing. Hello, Bad Wrong Fun. Welcome. Afterwards, they sat together on the couch watching TV, but they did more talking than anything. Eventually, they decided to play video games, and a few hours later, the date ended on that note. "Shall I walk you home, my lady?" Dante joked, faking a sophisticated accent. "That's a little redundant if we're headed the same place," Christine smirked. Her date shrugged and put a hand on her shoulder. "I simply thought offering would be the gentlemanly thing to do." He grinned, and Christine sputtered with laughter. "I'm sorry, it's just you're the most slovenly man I know. Gentleman is not a word I'd use for you." She laughed when Dante feigned insult hand over his heart. I'll have you know, I started washing my clothes at least once a week. The man pretended to bow as Christine clapped. I'm so proud, she joked. Now you're only slightly less disgusting. A real man works all day and has the odor to prove it, Dante retorted. A real man bathes. I bathe. Once a year really doesn't count. They continued to banter as they always did, slowly moving towards the staircase. It was almost 1 o'clock, and the two were still awake, arguing, but something had changed. Their arguments had sometimes become heated, even a bit vicious in the past, but this debate, despite its overtones of insult, was not serious at all. They really were just playing. While in their past, they had been serious and rarely playful. Something had changed, and both parties knew it. But neither was afraid anymore. Whatever relationship existed between them, they would let it go as it would and hope for the best. Go as it would. I'm not sure what... Okay. Oh, hello, Pablo. All right, which button was my... Nope, that's not the button. There we go. The next day brought fog over the city. Citizens went about their business and students attended class. Outside of one of the city's more prestigious colleges stood a tall man dressed head to toe in black. For the entire day, he stood leaning against a tree in the woods, eyes trained on the building. What building? On the building, never moving. Students moved to and from classes under his watchful gaze. One particular female student seemed to keep his gaze. The man fingered the pocket watch in his hand. Eyes ghosted over, unconsciously, continuously whispering, "Not yet. Not yet. Soon. Not yet." For once, the school day did not drag on endlessly for Christine. It was hardly as troublesome as usual, or perhaps her head was so high in the clouds she didn't notice. She sauntered through the hallways with a confidence she didn't usually exude. The people were still stupid, but Christine found she was gracious enough to forgive them. Her professor handed her back one of her papers, and her grade was magnificent. She left the class beaming. When the final bell rang, she left the building with a smile for the first time in her life. Dante wasn't at home when Christine walked through the door. The woman dumped her things on the couch and glanced at the dinner table with a forlorn smile. If she had been girlier, she might have giggled. Diana, I literally had the same... That's why I started laughing at fingered, because that's where my brain goes. But yeah, apparently he fingered his pocket watch. Instead, she put on her sweatpants and sweatshirt. Why does she only ever wear sweats? And went to the kitchen for a snack. The phone rang as she did. Christine answered professionally, sitting on the kitchen counter with an apple in her other hand. Devil may cry, badass for hire, how may I help you? The voice on the line laughed. Last time I called, you said dumbass for hire. Christine grinned at the voice. Well, I felt like being nice today. She waited for his chuckles to die down. What do you need, Nero? Actually, I called for you, he explained. Dante's on a mission out of town, and he told me I should entertain you. Christine chuckled. He's an idiot, but I guess you could come over. Cool. My girlfriend's coming, too. She's curious to meet you. Christine's face looked like it had been jolted by electricity. Her mood shifted, but she nodded. Yeah, sure thing. A girl? Another demon? Another stranger? Be there soon. Click. The phone hung loose in Christine's hand for a moment until she got the sense to put it down. Then she heaved a heavy sigh. It was the same kind of sigh as a performer about to step on stage, still waiting in the wings, trying to summon strength through their mouth. God. Oh, man. Yeah, this was definitely written by a teenager for so many reasons, but that's one of them for sure. Oh, man. Across town, Dante walked up the steep steps leading to East Bell College of the Arts. I finally named the college. Finally. Hands in his pockets, he sauntered through the doors and into the entryway, glancing around with slight interest. From the other end of the hall came a man in a business suit who greeted Dante with an extended hand. "Yo," he waved, ignoring the invitation to a handshake. The man shrugged it off. "Welcome, Mr. Sparta. I'm Charles Dean. Obviously, I work at a college and my name is Charles Dean." "You talked to my assistant on the phone?" Dante shook his hand with nonchalance. Okay, I just said they didn't shake hands, and now they're shaking hands. "I'm the school superintendent, if you would follow me." The conversation continued as the two veered to the left. "Your reputation and business are well known around here, which leads me to be concerned about your coming." The man was sweating and nervously wringing his hands. "We shouldn't be expecting some sort of attack, should we?" Am I just implying everyone knows about demons in this world? I thought before that I said they didn't. Oh boy. No. The hunter held up his hands. A kidnapping, maybe. He stuck his hands into his pockets. "I'm working for one of your students, Christine Moss." The man's face changed completely. "Ah, I see. You work for the Moss family." No, just Christine." This surprised Charles, who didn't seem to catch on. "Well then, I suppose it will be the usual treatment?" "Usual treatment?" Charles looked even more confused and winced, realizing he was digging a hole for himself. "So you aren't her guard?" No." Dante crossed his arms. "Who do you think I am?" Charles set his face in a determined frown, though there was a bit of fear in his eyes. "I'm afraid I can't say. I've already said too much. If you aren't here representing the Moss family, I'm afraid you'll have to leave." And apparently that was that. 10 minutes later found Christine wringing her hands and cutting a line into the floor with her pacing back and forth. She did not want to go out shopping, but as a gesture of kindness and the hopes of making friends, she was going and was dressed in her best. Her nicest pair of blue sweatpants, Converses, and a baggy black tee. God, I was such a teenager when I wrote this. Jesus. Color flushed her face, and she bit her lip when suddenly 2 heavy knocks came from the door. "Please let it be more assassins here to kill me," the faithless woman prayed. I had to specify she's faithless. I had to specify the atheist prayed. God, this is so pretentious. She opened the door and found not more dangers, but Nero, slouched with one hand in his pocket, his demonic hand back in the sling. Just behind him was the stranger. She was a young woman, a bit younger than Christine, with brown hair and an innocent, round face. The new woman smiled and spoke first. "Good morning," she chirped, shyly. "No." Christine stood rigidly, eyes trained on the woman, and in response, Nero's girlfriend seemed to deflate, wondering if she'd done something wrong. "Hey, Atris, welcome." Nero frowned. Hey, Christine, this is Kyrie, my girlfriend. Kyrie, meet Dante's newest victim." Nero introduced them, glancing from the shy, shrinking girl to the frozen, emotionless one in the doorway. His joke hadn't made as much as a laugh or a denial. You gonna let us in?" Nero finally asked. Christine still remained frozen in the face, but her body moved out of the way. Sheepishly, she trained her eyes on the floor. "Make yourselves at home," she muttered. Kyrie stepped in after Nero wringing her hands, head down. Everybody's wringing their hands in this one. The boy stood by the open door and turned to Christine. "So, we still going out?" He motioned to the open door even. Christine's face paled and she said nothing. Nero, we wouldn't want to make her do something she doesn't want to," Kyrie muttered. The man frowned deeply at the sight of Kyrie's pathetic look, and he glared. "What the hell? She said she wanted to on the phone." Then he addressed Christine. "The fuck's in your bonnet, huh?" The fuck's in your bonnet? The fuck is in your bonnet? At that, Christine turned on her heel and rushed out the door so fast the others barely saw her. She stormed down the stairs to the car Nero had driven therein, opened the door, and slammed it shut. She got in, and then she slammed it shut. Nero and Kyrie remained just inside the house, staring after the woman. Well, this isn't how I pictured today going, Nero groaned, rubbing his forehead. Kyrie placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, he insisted. You haven't done anything. Maybe she and Dante got into a fight or something. He finally sighed, shook his head, and went out the door. He waited for Kyrie to follow and shut it behind her. People. People everywhere. Touching her shoulders, her skin, looking at her. Christine set her face in her darkest, teenaged goth girl grimace. And trailed after Nero and Kyrie with shoulders slumped. They were in the mall, wandering aimlessly, at a sad attempt to get to know one another. Nero didn't care where they shopped. He'd figured the girls would shop and he'd follow them around. Christine never went to the mall and didn't like shopping. Kyrie was nervous and afraid she'd upset Christine again, so she didn't pick a store. All in all, the three made quite the hopeless trio, walking circles around the mall. So, are we actually going to do anything, or was this trip a waste of time? Nero huffed in annoyance, adjusting his sling. Kyrie glanced at him and then back at Christine. The other woman kept her eyes lowered. Would you like to do something? The, first woman's body jolted like she'd been spooked. Kyrie jumped in surprise. No thanks, Christine muttered. Kyrie turned her eyes ahead and frowned, wondering what in the world could be wrong with the girl. Her fear and nerves had changed into concern. Are you all right? She finally asked, shyly glancing back. Christine walked stiffly, like the Tin Man. Oh my god. Fine, she muttered. Kyrie knew that wasn't the truth, but she didn't pry. Maybe we could use some lunch, the girl asked her boyfriend. Nero shrugged and looked at Christine. You hungry? Finally, the girl glanced up a little, eyes hidden by her hair. Of course. She spoke quickly. Long as it's not pizza. Then her gaze returned to the dirty ground. Nero and Kyrie glanced at one another and shared small smiles. At least it was a start. Instead of pizza, the three sat together at an Italian restaurant. I say no to pizza, but this is about as close as you can get to pizza without pizza. All the tomato sauce and cheese reminds me of Dante, Christine muttered. Though the words weren't exactly kind, at least she was speaking. Nero ribbed her right back. Thinking of Dante? He grinned cheekily. I'll have to tell him he's on your mind. The girl frowned. Yes, he is. I'm always thinking of how best to painfully rip him apart and then dispose of the body. Whew. Okay. Oh boy. They were three of the only people in the place, so the waiter came quickly and the food even quicker. The table was silent after the initial conversation. Christine was staring intently at the things decorating the walls, while Nero and Kyrie seemed to be both wondering what the hell was wrong with this woman. Nero was a little miffed. She hadn't acted this way at all when it had been them at the house with Dante. Kyrie was more concerned that Christine might be upset. The food came, and Christine hardly touched hers. Nero swallowed his whole. And Christine handed her plate over to him. What, you don't want it? He asked, bewildered. Changed my mind, she shrugged. Nero's brow furrowed. Now he was really weirded out. This was not the person he'd met days ago. Oh, man. Oh, hello, Joe Carr. Happy birthday. All right. A group of college students, a few girls with their boyfriends, entered the restaurant and were escorted to a table. One of the kids was wearing a school jacket, and Nero noticed it was the same as Christine's. On their way, a few eyes landed on her, and a bit of whispering started. Christine didn't seem to notice, but Nero did. With his heightened senses, he could hear them. That's that Moss girl, right? That rich brat? Brat's not the word I would use, one of the girls muttered. Like what, bitch? These are the most stereotypical mean girls. A brunette shook her head violently. She's like a ghoul. There's something seriously wrong with her. Her family's so weird. Rich people are like that. I don't know. I just get the creepiest feeling around her. He watched them as they sat down at their own table. They kept glancing at Christine, the looks on their faces curious and apprehensive. They didn't seem like friends, and they didn't seem to like her all that much. Nero frowned and figured that if Christine acted this way at college, no wonder they didn't like her. But she was such a cool girl. Nero remembered when they talked and played video games and had a blast. She'd been a lot of fun, with a lot of interesting stuff to say. She'd had an edge to her, but hadn't been a total jerk like this. She had an edge. So how did you and Dante meet? Kyrie wondered. Christine glanced up and quickly away. Stroke of bad luck. Did he save you from being attacked by demons? No, I meant meeting him was bad luck. Really bad luck. The girl took a sip of water and that was that. Kyrie blinked. Oh, I see. Every other conversation they tried to start ended similarly until Kyrie was left disheartened. Once lunch was over, they left them all and got back in Nero's car. Oops, wrong button. There we go. Well, guess we're going back to Dante's. Nero huffed and started the car. This had been the worst idea he'd ever had. He stewed over the ruined day as they drove back to Dante's. They pulled up in front of the building and Christine jumped out. Nero sighed and remained seated. We should at least say goodbye, Kyrie muttered. Nero didn't say a word, but got out of the car and slammed the door so strongly the car shook. Christine had already gotten to the door once Kyrie and Nero got out. She remained in front of it, hand hovering over the doorknob. The two others approached the porch and stood at the bottom, waiting to say goodbye. Thousands of thoughts raced through Christine's mind, and her face hardly changed at all. Slowly, tentatively, she turned around. We've got some soda in the house, she offered. Nero and Kyrie's eyes widened. And beer, if you like that. She turned around. Dante's got this karaoke machine, if you want. Her voice trailed off, and she lowered her eyes. Nero, who had only a moment ago been steaming in anger, felt it abating a bit. For the first time he had a different look at the girl. What to him had earlier been a rude and degenerate posture, with stiff, frozen limbs and a cruelly cold expression, was now the nervous, shy appearance of a young woman with a frightened appearance and a flushed face. Jesus, this is all so bad. Kyrie bit her lip and tugged at Nero's sleeve. He glanced at her and heard her silent plea. He let out a sigh. Sure, why not? Nero began climbing the stairs. I've nowhere else to be. Kyrie smiled ear to ear. Christine seemed to ease up, and she nodded, opening the door to let her guests in. Oh, I guess that was the front, and I forgot to put that picture up. Oh well. As Nero was in charge of fetching the drinks, Kyrie and Christine messed with the karaoke machine. Dante listens to a lot of crap. Christine huffed. I never knew he was such a metalhead. Metal isn't crap, Nero called from the other room. He was ignored. Kyrie kept looking through the list. I don't know what to pick. I don't really listen to modern music. I guess I do, Christine said, but I doubt Dante has my kind of music on here. Kyrie glanced up at her. What kind is that? The girl glanced away. There's so many glancings here. So much glancing. Whatever, I guess. I don't really like a genre. I just like different songs, you know? I see. What songs do you like? Kyrie's smile grew a little as Christine's fluster grew. I like stuff by Five for Fighting. Five for Fighting. I had to choose a band for my college-age rebel kid, and the band I chose for them to like was Five for Fighting. The girl's eyes lit up. Really? Kyrie smiled. Me too. 100 years makes me cry every time. Christine nodded. I like their Too Light CD. It's newer, but it's good too. The girls had found a connection, however small, and they moved on to see if by some strange possibility Dante had Five for Fighting on his machine. He certainly didn't, but Kyrie managed to find something she liked. Oh my god. Oh my god, of all the things and all the bands. Evanescence, My Chemical Romance, a Placebo, something that... Five for Fighting. Oh my god. One of the most like mediocre mom rock flash in the pan bands. Oh man. Oh man. Oh, there are Disney songs on here, she giggled. I can't imagine Dante watching a Disney movie. It must have been put on here by one of the girls. Nero set the drinks on the table and plopped onto the couch as he opened his. Somehow, I can't imagine Trish or Lady watching that either. It's gushy crap. Kyrie glanced at him and smiled. I thought you liked watching them with me, she said with a pretend hurt voice. Nero flushed and glanced off. I like watching them with you, he admitted, but they're mushy. Love is like that, Kyrie said in response. As the two lovebirds bickered, Christine read over the list of songs on the karaoke set. Her eyes lit up and she smirked as she thought of a way to cheer Kyrie up and perhaps annoy Nero at the same time, which sounded perfect to her. Hey Nero, the girl called, help me out for a sec, would you? All Linkin Park, Panic at the Disco, Fallout. Yes, all of those would have been perfect, Diana. Even more examples of bands that would have fit this image I was trying to create better than Five for Fighting. On his way back to his bike, Dante pulled out his cell phone and dialed. Hello, this is Maddie. Who be this? Who be this? Who be this? Who be this? A cheerful voice answered. Dante smirked. Just a guy in need of a little help. He winced when the voice squealed in his ear. Dante, what a nice surprise, Madison giggled. So what kind of trouble is my Christy in now? The man chuckled as he revved his bike and started for the road. I'm not sure, the man frowned. I don't know if she's in any trouble, but I'm trying to keep her from getting into any. That's impossible. You're telling me. So how can I be of service? The hunter frowned and wondered how to word his question, what exactly to ask. I need to know about Christine's family, he began. Whatever she's involved in, it's 'cause of them. Has she told you anything about them? Not a fucking thing. Wow, that was a switch with this girl. The girl sighed. She never talks about her family, at least not her mom's family. You know, the super rich ones. The sound of movement came from the phone. The truth is, her family's always been really weird. It's not something I can put my finger on. It's just strange. Like Christine's mom, the girl gasped, like in shock. The woman is a mess. How so? Dante quirked an eyebrow as he turned a corner. How not so is more like it. She's a freaking zombie. It's so creepy. She and Christine's dad got divorced when Christine was little, and her mom didn't even try to get custody. It's just so creepy. Uh-huh. It wasn't solid, but Dante filed it away forever. For later. Filed it away forever. Creepy mother, check. That explains at least half of Christine's past being so messed up. I know you joke about it. The serious tone surprised Dante, but the girl sighed. But I think you're right. I mean, when we were younger, she was your normal little girl, you know? But the summer before high school, she spent the summer at that mansion. You know the one. Dante confirmed he did. He'd been there to rescue Christine. She would always spend a little time there every summer, but never 3 months in a row. I didn't see her until school started again. A bad feeling crept into Dante's heart. This was going somewhere, and he didn't like the direction. Something happened while she was there. I know it. Oh, hello, Silent Pain. Welcome. All right. When Christine came back, everything changed. She was like her mom for a little while, a total zombie. She would pitch fits, refuse to go to school, wouldn't talk or touch anybody. The girl's tone grew sad. It took years for her to get better. I mean, she's still not the most social person, but compared to back then, it's like a total turnaround. This doesn't bode well, Dante huffed. So something did happen, and it had to do with her family. That's a clue, at least. I might have one more clue. Hope it's not as depressing as the last one. Worse, Madison sighed. Christine's got this scar. A really nasty one. Dante's eyes widened. I saw it on accident like a year ago. Horrid thoughts came to Dante's mind. Blood sacrifice, summonings, demonic rituals. What could her family have done, and what did the scar have to do with it? He'd have to look at it to know. Where is it? Her upper back. It's probably something you should see yourself, but I gotta warn you, it's disturbing. I've seen a lot of disturbing things in my life. That was the understatement of the year. Dante slowed his bike down as he pulled up in front of Devil May Cry. I'm sure you have, but still, this? Madison paused. Dante shut the bike off, only half listening to Maddie's worried jabbering until a few words caught his ear. Say that again? He asked, halfway up the stairs to his house. The girl sighed. It's a name. What's a name? The man frowned deeply. The scar, Madison repeated. The scar is a name, like somebody used a knife or a pencil and wrote in her blood. Dante approached the door to his home with a confused mind and heavy heart. What greeted him at the door was just as strange. A foreign yet slightly familiar melody was playing inside, muffled by the walls. It was slower than anything he ever listened to, and he had no idea what it was. Stumped, the man slowly opened the door and stuck his head inside. All of the furniture in his room had been pushed away from the center near the walls. Now he recognized the song playing from his jukebox, Beauty and the Beast, from the Disney movie of the same name. In the center of the room were Kyrie and Nero embracing one another and awkwardly slow dancing. The girl was beaming, and Nero resembled the sun. Oh my god, this is such an awkward sentence. Nero resembled the sun because of the way the heat was coming off his face in waves. Okay. He was red as a brick wall. Oh my lord. Ugh. A big smirk came from Dante, and he had to laugh. The dancers jumped, glancing at the door. Oh, hello, Dante. Kyrie grinned at him, and her happiness was infectious. He grinned back. Hey, Graceful. The girl blushed, but beamed at the compliment. The man turned his gaze to Nero, who was purposefully avoiding looking at him. So looks like your 2 left feet aren't just on the battlefield, huh? The younger glared at him. Shut up. Dante held up his hands in surrender. Sorry. Far be it from me to interrupt your romantic moment. Here. He approached the machine and replayed the song, to make up for the interruption. Kyrie looked excited. Nero looked like he was about to lose his lunch. His girlfriend pulled him to the center of the room again, thrilled, and though Nero was mortified, he had to smile at the childishly happy look on her face. The song began again, and the two started their dance. Dante watched for a moment before approaching the only other person in the room. How in the world did this start? Dante whispered to Christine, leaning against the wall beside her. The woman smirked. I felt like getting blackmail on Nero, and this came to mind. The man laughed. Great idea. Christine frowned a little. Well, we decided to kind of have a bonding day. Nero wanted me to meet Kyrie, but I totally screwed it up, she admitted with a huff. I wanted to make it up to them, and I figured this kind of thing was right up Kyrie's alley. You figured right. Dante glanced up at the cheerful girl, holding Nero with nervous yet excited hands. How... Oh, man. They are cute, she said. Dante chuckled. The two watched for a moment more. Each had their arms crossed, leaned against the wall, eyes on the lovebirds. So, wanna dance? Dante smirked with a quirked eyebrow. Christine let out a heavy sigh. How did I know you would ask that? She frowned. The man turned a suggestive gaze on her. It's not like I'm asking for anything risque, just an innocent dance to a children's song. It's supposed to be romantic. From you, it's a total chore. Aw, you've hurt my manly feelings. You've hurt my manly feelings. Dante pretended to pout. Finally, Christine got off the wall and extended her hand. You've got one chance, but the first time I hear a lewd joke, she insisted. Dante gave a bow, a hand on his heart. I swear not to impose on your honor. Okay, these are out of... Oh, one's missing, that's why. Okay, so it should be on that one now. Christine rolled her eyes, grabbed his hand, and dragged him to the floor. Come on, let's get this over with. He grinned at her flustered appearance and awkward pose. She stood in front of him, arms crossed, glancing at him as if wanting to ask what to do. Dante moved her limbs gently, placing them where they should be. He held her hand. Christine gulped at the sight. His hands were so large compared to hers, swallowing her tiny palm up. Dante was warm, and they stood close together so that the heat warmed her body. Or was that her cheeks getting warm? She couldn't tell. Oh, man. The woman said nothing and moved with stiff, nervous legs. Dante didn't joke or comment, instead accommodating her horrid dancing skills. They remained mostly still, swaying back and forth, holding each other. So the middle school form of dance. Nero and Kyrie, on the other hand, moved all around them, with awkward steps and fumbles that embarrassed embarrassed Nero, but made Kyrie giggle. Every time she laughed, Nero's eyes lit up. So Dante and Christine stood in the center, very still, hardly noticing the other two near them. Kyrie, watch out, you almost hit the table. It's because you're not dancing with me. You wait until I move to start moving. Don't be shy. No one's judging you. The teen glanced at Dante and huffed. But for once, Kyrie was right. Dante didn't seem to be paying him any attention. Nero noticed the peaceful look on the man's face. He wasn't really looking at anything, just standing with Christine. The older man let out a long sigh, closed his eyes, and leaned forward. Christine noticed his relaxed state, noticed him leaning forward. She let him move closer until they were resting their foreheads together. She felt nervous, felt terrified, but she closed her eyes. Christine let him cradle her and let his scent surround her. Leather and pizza. Okay, let's take a moment. I saw Joker just joined us. I wanted to see if you were going to show up today. To thank you for the lovely present I actually have right here. Joe was kind enough to send me my own ring of power. So all of you are damned now because I have the one ring. And also a little music box that plays Lord of the Rings music. Let me see if y'all can hear it. Is this the way it goes? It's very cute. I like it. Thank you so much. Make me very happy. Do you like it? Candy, is that why you came down? Because you like the music? You're Gandalf and you like the music. Well, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Joe. All right. Okay. All right. Where did you learn to dance? Kyrie giggled. Your brother, actually. Nero glanced away shyly. Really? The girl asked, a serious look on her face. Yeah, I kind of asked him to teach me so I wouldn't be, well, I wanted to know in case of this. Kyrie beamed. She closed the space between the two of them, surprising her date. She squeezed him tight, and the boy beamed. And as they danced together, and they danced a little more together, but just as awkwardly as ever. In the background, the song continued, beginning to wind down. Nero and Kyrie remained for hours after that, joining Dante and Christine for dinner. The four had a great time, and by the end of it, Christine felt totally comfortable around Kyrie. She apologized for her earlier actions, but the younger girl shrugged it off. It's all right. We shouldn't have forced you to go. Christine didn't know how to explain her nervousness, how to make up for her actions, so she sighed and nodded. Nero and Kyrie left soon after, and the house grew quiet. The furniture was back in place, and Dante sat at his desk. Christine waved to him as she moved to the stairs. I'm heading on to bed, she muttered. I'll see you in the morning. The man nodded. Night. The house became silent. The sky darkened. Perhaps an hour later, Dante stopped working at his desk, setting papers aside. He stalked silently up the stairs to their shared room. Slowly, he opened the door and glanced inside. So many glances. Take a drink every time I use the word glance. Christine had long been lost to sleep. Dante entered the room without disturbing her and approached his side of the bed. He walked with stiff steps, nervous, to his closet. He was about to change when his eyes glanced at Christine again, at her back. The man wondered what to do. It took only a moment for him to quietly turn to the bed and gently sit on the edge. His hand moved to the end of her shirt. For one moment he hesitated and then took hold and gently looked at the skin. And there, just as Madison had said, was the atrocious blemish on Christine's flesh. It crossed her upper back and was perhaps an inch tall? Oh, I guess long ways, not off the skin. Ugh. A shudder of horror and anger shook him as he saw this horrid scar and realized, sure enough, it was a name. In blood-red letters, her back read, Elton Moss. Dun, dun, dun. Hello, Jim. What am I reading? I am reading a fanfiction I wrote in high school. We are at the finale today of this horrible atrocity, and so much is happening. Oh my god. Is she named Christine because of the Phantom? Honestly, knowing myself, I think I named her Christine because my aunt's name was Christine, and I thought it was a really, like, I don't know, like, rich person name, because growing up I thought my aunt was rich, so I feel like that's why I named her Christine. Though the fact that it also fits with Phantom is kind of great too, definitely, because I was obsessed with it at that point in my life. Oh man. And there is another author's note. There's another message from the past. This one's not as bad as the previous ones, though. Forgive me for taking so long to update. I blame Dragon Age. BTW. There's a line from that game in here. Kudos if you catch it, XD. Once again, sorry, and I hope to update more frequently in the future. So remember how I said I spent most of high school playing Dragon Age? Here's the proof. I even mention it in fiction. Oh, I wonder what the reference line is. I referenced a line from the game in there? I did not catch a line from the game in there. Not even a little. Okay. Let's see here. Oh no, we are on this picture. Another day of school, another pile of homework, and another empty house Christine came home to. It didn't feel empty, though. Dante's scent lingered everywhere and gave the place a strangely comforting, safe feeling. It was perhaps the only place Christine had ever felt safe in. The woman smiled as she walked in the door, setting her school things on the couch and approaching the fridge. Something on the counter stopped her. There was a pile of letters and bills. Oh, well then this is out of order. Why are you like this? Let me check this real quick. Apparently I can't order anything in my frickin' timeline. Okay, that's the one. They're misplaced. Christine's stomach turned. With hesitant fingers, she picked up the letter and tore it open. When she saw it, her face turned white. Damn it all. Her hands gripped the paper tight as she reread the title. The foundation of our house welcomes you. What the hell does that mean? I'm trying to sound pretentious and smart, but it doesn't mean anything. The foundation of the house's foundation, the brick and mortar, invites you. All right, now we go back, because that's where... Dante, while out biking around for information, received a call... Okay, wait, he's just biking around. Just, hey, do you have information? Hi, how about you? He didn't mind the interruption. His search had been fruitless anyway. Yo, he answered. Dante, it was Christine, breathless. Come back to the shop and make it fast. A spark of alertness and worry shot through him. Everything okay? Just come back. Then she hung up. Before you could say U-turn, Dante had spun his bike around and quickly sped home. Dante stormed through his front door to find Christine still at the counter, letter in hand. She shoved it in his direction, and he took it from her. Let's see, so now we should be... Okay, I don't get the order here. Oh, okay, I guess that was the home picture. And nope, okay, it's missing some things. This stupid program is completely screwed up my folder. Oh, well. We'll stick on this picture, which I just love because it's so dumb. What's this? He asked. My death sentence, she mumbled. Dante began to read. The official-looking letter had the Moss family seal on it, and the body of it was written thusly. We, the members of the Central House, welcome all of the Moss family to our humble home on the outskirts of East Bell for our annual reverence for the calling ball. Reverence for the... Dante squinted. What the hell is this? With a sigh, Christine pulled a beer out of the fridge. Dante eyed her curiously. I need it, she muttered. Then she began to explain. Back when America was an itty-bitty baby country, our family was so much smaller, and we were the only demon hunters around here. It was a dangerous time to live in anyway, with weather and lack of food and Indians and whatnot. But the demons made it hell. Our family protected the populace. Let's take a step back and remember that in the beginning of this story, I established the fact that she never knew what demons were. And now she knows all of this grand history about her family being demon hunters, which she didn't know before. Good job, me. There's so much wrong. So much. So, to thank us for it, once a year the citizens would attend a ball and pay us reverence. That's how we first ended up with the mansion. They gave us the governor's mansion as payment. Bad luck for the governor. My great ancestor was the governor. Christine explained. She drank a sip and then flinched from the taste but kept trying it. That kept happening for years after, even when other demon hunters surfaced. Eventually, it was a family affair, a way for all the branches of the family to have a yearly reunion, especially after the big fire almost killed us all. That fire, Dante frowned. How old were you then? Little. I don't really remember anything, she explained. That happened at one of the reverence balls, and a lot of people died. We're a lot smaller now. So what's so bad about this one? Just don't go. Christine huffed and finally gave up on the beer. It wasn't helping settle her stomach. The balls always happen in the summer. Something clicked in Dante's mind. She would spend time at her grandfather's every summer. And the one summer she went there for 3 whole months. And the balls always happened in the summer. I wrote that sentence. For some reason, they've changed it now. I should have known Grandpa wouldn't give up. He's trying to get me away from you. She frowned deeply. And I can't not go. Everyone has to go. The man frowned and quirked an eyebrow. No, you don't. Christine almost chuckled. You really don't know these kind of families, do you? The hunter shrugged. Not really. I've worked for 1 or 2 of these Richie Riches. The woman kept his gaze. I have to go, and it's not going to be pretty, whatever Grandpa has planned. He could tell the whole family I've been staying here and get them to vote it down. Vote it down? Dante almost laughed, approaching the counter and setting the letter down. Are you kidding? That's part of the ball's purpose. We get together and vote on things like which college will this cousin go to? Who will this person marry? Where will this person live? All my grandfather has to do is mention I'm living with you and there will be a vote, and I assure you it won't be for us. Dante did burst into laughter at this point. Are you kidding me? What kind of family does that? Christine stared at him like he had 3 heads. What family doesn't? Dante stared back at her. I don't know any families that choose their children's path for them like that. Christine made a face. Huh. Dante's stomach clenched. Christine sighed deeply and put her head in her hands, and for a moment Dante felt a little guilty. He hadn't been treating the situation very seriously. Reaching out, he hesitated before putting a hand on her shoulder. The woman jumped, and he brought his hand back. Sorry, he mumbled, red-faced. Christine shook her head. You just surprised me. Sorry. She glanced away. Then she sighed and stood from her stool. It says the event is in a week. She smiled and tried to crack a joke. At least I've got a while yet. Neither one laughed. Look, Dante scratched his head, letting out a sigh. There's got to be a way around this. If you go there, you know your family's going to lock you up, she nodded. I can't not go. I'll just have to face them and convince them Grandpa's wrong. She nodded. Who knows? Maybe they'll see it my way. Somehow her voice said she doubted it. Dante doubted it too. I'm tired. I'm going to go take a nap, Christine told him, heading for the stairs. Dante nodded. I'm going out again, he replied, grabbing his keys from the counter. Wake me up when you get back, the woman called. Dante didn't reply. He watched the top of the stairs where Christine had disappeared, worry obviously filling his eyes. So much is happening. Hey, Jeff and Ari Gorilla, welcome. Alright. Shit's about to get real. Oh, I guess we're just gonna keep on that one, because... Well, no, because it was supposed to be another... That one was supposed to be behind that. I'll have to frickin' look at why it's mixing up the numbers. Dumb program. Thus far, Dante had tried looking inside every office building, every official file, every town history book and old newspaper, but mentions of the Moss family were few and far between. Even the Big Fire had sparse details on the family, other than listing those lost to tragedy. Dante kept the list in case it became necessary later, but other than that, he was at square one. Damn it. The man drove around town aimlessly, trying to think of a new direction. The new big bad demon in town still hadn't made a move, and Dante didn't want to approach him until he had an idea of what he was after. Are the two really connected? And if so, how? Dante had never been so stumped after a mission. Usually he walked in, killed something, and walked out. It had never been such a mystery before. The image of the scar passed through his mind, and he almost flinched. I've got to figure this out before something happens. He frowned. Suddenly, his phone rang. Christine again? He answered. Hello? Dante Sparta? Definitely not Christine. It was a man's voice. Speaking. Who's this? My name is Gary Young. I'm calling about my daughter, Christine. Dante's eyes grew wide. Wait a minute. He thought over a few details of Christine's life. You're the average Joe Christine's mom was married to. That'd be right. The man didn't seem too torn up about his words. I've heard you were hired to protect my daughter. I didn't know she was in danger. I'm sure your daughter didn't want to worry you, and I can promise you she's safe. Still, I think you and I need to have a talk, Gary muttered. I want to know what's been happening. The hunter thought about it for a moment, sighed, and glanced at the gas station on the side of the road. He pulled into a parking spot and turned the bike off. Well, here's the gist of it, Dante began. In a few short sentences, he explained Christine's situation and what was happening. I thought something was up. I'd received a letter as well, since I'm an official member of the Moss family. I never go to those things, but I'm terrified Christine will. I'm trying to convince her not to. Don't try reasoning, it won't work. I need you to keep her physically from going. Surprised, the man couldn't speak for a moment. We are talking about your daughter. What do you want me to do, lock her in the basement? Gary sighed into the phone. There hasn't been a ball since Christine started high school, and now they're suddenly doing it again? This just reeks of something strange, and I don't want Christine mixed back up in it. Dante's mind flashed. The year before Christine started high school, she spent the whole summer at her grandfather's, and there hadn't been a ball since. I feel like I'm playing detective, Dante mumbled. What? Nothing. Look, I'm worried about Christine, but she's finally started opening up to me, and I don't want to hurt her trust by totally ignoring her wishes. The man adjusted the phone. I'll go with her to the ball and keep an eye on her. Trust me, I'm good at taking care of people. Christine's father heaved a heavy sigh. When he next spoke, it was the plea of a desperate man. I'll trust your judgment, then. I've always thought well of the Sparta family, and I know the truth of the kind of stuff you face. Everyone knows about demons in this. Jeez. But please try to understand that I love my daughter, and for all her life I've had to watch as that family dragged her into its secrets. I don't know for sure what they're up to, but I know it's not something I want my daughter in. I can't stop it, but maybe you can. Listening to the heartfelt speech, Dante felt even more than before how important his mission was. It wasn't like other missions, where the fate of the world rested on his shoulders, but the well-being of someone he cared about depended on him. Somehow the weight felt just as heavy. His mouth was slightly dry, but Dante managed to speak. I swear I'll keep her safe. You can hold me to that. The older man chuckled. I will. And the hunter smiled. Geez, Bob is sad. That was a loud cry. You can't leave, Bob. I know. You're trapped with me. You have to hang out. All the kitties are trapped in here, and they're all complaining about it. Yeah, you're right, Bad Wrong Fun. You're right, the pizza place. Everybody in this universe knows about demons. Oh my god, what is up? Okay. I guess I don't know that they ever cover in Devil May Cry if demons are a known thing. It just seems like Dante and his crew, everybody knows about demons? I don't know. Baby, why are you crying? You gotta stay here. You wanna say hello? Come on. You're almost up. Come on, Bobby. There's a Bobby. There's a Bobby. Well, where are you gonna go? Gandalf's there. You can't go there. Where are you going? Bob, what are you doing? You just... Bobby, you just tried to steal Gandy's spot, and now he's bathing. Okay, bye. Okay. For the little time Christine was able to sleep, it was fitful. She woke covered in sweat, brow furrowed, and threw the covers back with an angry curse. The woman stormed into the living room, put on a violent movie, and tuned out her mind for a few hours. Her choice of film was the typical bloody fighting flick. Her eyes glazed over as she watched, and for a good hour and a half Christine hardly moved. For a minute there, I described this badly. I thought the house caught on fire, but it's in the movie. At one point during a fight, a fire broke out. In mere seconds, the building was engulfed in flames licking at the ceiling. The TV screen filled to the brim with red death, and Christine stared. What was this recognition, this vague sense of remembrance and fear? And a distant voice, a child's voice. Daddy! Kathunk! Christine sprang to her feet, holding the TV remote as if it were a weapon. "Who's there?" The room was silent, but for the TV. She paused it and scanned the room warily. "Who's there?" Nope, that's the wrong button. Oh, there it goes. An echoing, eerie laughter filled the room, turning Christine's stomach. It wasn't a pleasant noise. Again, the laughter echoed. It was a woman, Christine realized, head spinning round. It was coming from... Just as Christine turned to face Dante's wall of armaments, she saw a figure melting out of the shadows. First a foot, then a leg, colored a strange green, and naked, came from the darkness. What a sentence right there. Christine watched in shock as a naked green woman with long red hair came out of the wall and stood smirking before her. A moment later, what seemed like hundreds of bats filled the room. Christine shrieked, falling to the ground with her arms over her head as they swooped in circles. The animals surrounded the green woman, becoming darkness, turning into a sort of dress that covered her lower half. With a swoop of her elegant arms, the woman brushed her red hair forward over her breasts. "Why, hello," the otherworldly woman murmured. It seemed her voice came from every direction, even from inside Christine's mind. The woman glanced up, shaky, and backed away. Are you a demon?" the woman asked as she began to stand, using the couch for support. Pleased, she nodded. "That I am." She gestured at Christine with a long finger. "And you, my dear, are the strange creature my master has been keeping." "Creature?" Christine frowned. The woman stepped forward. "I am Nevin." She gave a slight curtsy, smirking, the motion allowing more of her skin of her legs to be exposed. Christine blushed. "One of the demons Dante defeated in battle, and now I live to serve him." "Oh, I bet you serve him all right," Christine thought with green envy. "That's nice and all, but what are you doing? Dante's not here." The creeping laugh came again. "Oh, I know. That's why I'm here. I wanted to get to know you better." More laughing, which twisted Christine's nerves. "While the master's away, the girls can play." Christine didn't realize she'd been backing away until her back hit the far wall. Frightened, she clenched her fists and faced the demon. "Leave me alone." Nevin didn't stop approaching, the shadows on her long legs growing wider across the floor. The darkness seemed to seep into the room, surrounding the poor human. Heart racing, Christine tried to run for the stairs, but the shadows morphed and blocked the door. Suddenly, a giant hand came from the blocked doorway, reaching for her, and with a screaming, Christine struggled against her captor. "Let me go," the woman snarled, trying to headbutt her. "You really don't know what you are, do you?" Nevin murmured in her ear. "I don't understand why he's kept you. He hasn't even bedded you yet." The demon looked confused. At that moment, Christine managed to get enough leverage to deliver a heavy headbutt to the other woman, and for a brief moment she almost escaped, but the demon recovered quickly and snarled, grabbing her by her hair. "Perhaps I'll tame you and leave whatever's left of you for the master to mourn. How does that sound?" And then she moved to attack. Christine's eyes caught the TV. She saw the pause scene of the fire, felt the earlier faded memories return, the crackling of walls as they collapsed, the thunderous boom of the ceiling caving in, the terrible heat of the flames. In a sudden move of extreme dexterity, Christine managed to slip her arms free. She elbowed the demoness in the throat and felt the shock of it relax the demon's shadows. Christine continued by grabbing her neck and slamming her into the floor, bending her arm and sitting on her back. In the brief moment when the demon was in shock, Christine reached across her body to the table beside the couch and opened a drawer. Smirking, Christine found just what she'd expect. An extra gun Lady and Trish had tucked away for her, just in case. Instead of aiming the weapon at the demon, Christine closed her eyes and opened her mind. And then there's a bunch of Latin, because I was taking Latin at the time, and clearly, I think I was also taking Spanish, because there's a lot of foreign language in this one, and I'm sure it's all wrong. Let's see what this is supposedly supposed to say. I'm incredibly curious. Let's see. Latin translation. It's probably a bunch of garbage. Oh, man. Let's see here. Latin. The fallen. Okay, in Latin, what it says is cado unis sententia non reverto vos ut abyssus terra vadum signum vos pro totus vicis. I failed Latin, so I doubt I did this correctly. And the English translation says, the fallen one of them. This statement does not return you to the abyss of the earth, over the ford of the sign of the eye for all time. So clearly it's supposed to be some sort of, like, banishment spell? Oh, man. Nevin screeched, scratching at Christine with the shadows, but the spell had already begun to take effect. Oh, there's another part. Repario passis in ops. What does that mean? What does that mean? God, why did I try and include... Find... It says, find peace in OPS. So clearly the last word isn't a word, and I misspelled it or mistranslated it. So it's find peace in OPS. Find peace in ops. 3 shots fired from the gun in quick succession, adding to the wails of the demon, before hitting the guitar on the wall and destroying it. It looked as if it had been bent in half as the bullets began to melt, and changed into 3 small circles bearing the Moss family crest. She did not even know what demons were in the first chapter, and now she is exercising them and shooting a gun. Christine found herself kneeling on the floor, shaking and bleeding a bit, but the demon was gone. After a moment, she let out a shaking laugh and moved off her knees. I'm surprised that worked, she mumbled. Haven't done it in so long. She leaned against the wall, her humor disappearing. The woman closed her eyes and fought off tears. After a while, the adrenaline, panic, and fear faded, and a new feeling settled into Christine's stomach. Damn it, she said, tossing the gun away. Just toss the gun. I broke his guitar. Oh, God, yeah, she's apparently done it before. Yeah, this is, This is, like, barely the same character. In my defense, I'm pretty sure I wrote this over the span of, like, 3 years. So clearly, I was not keeping track with the canon of the story. Oh my god. Okay. Oh, no, that's the one. Go back. Okay. When Dante returned home that night, he found the house empty with a plastic bag on his desk. A check signed by Christine with the amount blank. A small note beside the bag briefly explained, "Went out. Owe you for the guitar. Sorry." Shocked, Dante glanced at the bag on his desk, eyes wide. Nevin? No reply. He leaned over and opened it, and sure enough, Nevin was inside. A very strong sealing spell was keeping the demon quiet. Did Christine? Shocked, the man almost laughed. He could feel Nevin's fury and wondered what had brought the two to blows. A bad feeling in his gut made him glare at the weapon. It actually says a bag feeling, but I'm sure I meant bad. A bag feeling in his gut made him glare at the weapon. What did you do? Unable to speak, Nevin merely fumed. Dante shook his head and walked to the couch, sitting down. He would let Christine blow off steam for a while. She'd proven she could handle herself anyway. Outside, the clouds had grown dark, the moon obscured. Dante glanced at it as he turned on the TV. Storm on the way. If only he'd known how true his words were. For almost an hour, Christine wandered aimlessly around town as the first drops of rain fell on her back. Her legs burned from use, feet sore, so eventually she found a fire escape and climbed on top of an old apartment complex, 'cause people just do that. The ladder groaned and moaned, and her skin slipped on the wet surface as the rain really started coming down. With a mutter, she pulled her hood up and climbed onto the rooftop. She settled down, cross-legged, hardly bothered by the weather. Who cares about pneumonia? She was soaked to the bone, leaning on her knees with her head down. Her earlier scrapes and cuts were still bleeding, the blood diluted by the tears from the sky. Mm. Christine settled down. Nope, I read that bit. Biting her lip, the woman didn't cry, but she felt anger. Anger at her own helplessness. She was in a horrid situation, not knowing the way out, the way to freedom. For so long, her past and her family had held her tight in its jaws, and she had been resigned to her dim future. Then a strange anomaly had appeared in her life. A handsome man! Simply being near him went against everything her family had told her because he was a demon. And Christine found she didn't care. With a chuckle, she was reminded of her novel, her characters, and she smiled. Thunder rumbled in the distance, reminded Christine of other thoughts. Now she's a caveman. She knew the independence, the joy she'd found with Dante and his friends was fleeting. Grandpa wouldn't stand for it long. The revelation ball. Didn't I call it I called it something else. I've already changed the name. Well, the ball was proof of that. The idea of returning to see all those people knowing they could control her fate. It terrified her. The woman clenched her knees tight. Feet splashed through the puddles on the roof, and Christine slowly glanced up. Black boots were approaching her, long legs dressed in leather. But despite the seeming resemblance, this wasn't Dante, because every man in leather is Dante. Christine's eyes kept traveling upwards. These legs were attached to a tall, thin man with wet, messy black hair and tanned skin. His eyes were a strange, vivid yellow. Spooked a bit by his sudden appearance, and still a little jumpy from earlier, Christine leapt to her feet and clenched her fists. "What do you want?" the woman snarled. Immediately the stranger held up his hands in surrender. "Only to talk," the man murmured with a thick accent. "He's supposed to be Spanish, because I was taking Spanish at the time, and I used some Spanish badly in this story. I'm not even going to try to have a Spanish accent. We're not going to do that. We're just going to keep going." "Well, if you're gonna, go ahead," she mumbled, backing away a little, but letting down her arms. "Don't try anything." "Of course not." The man made a low bow, hair falling over his face. "You may call me Ashma." It's spelled Ashma, but it just looks like asthma to me. It just looks like I am the demon asthma. Christine nodded. "I'm Christine, but I have a feeling you knew that." Ashma straightened up and smirked. "I would be a horrible spy if I didn't." "Spy for who?" "Not your family," he murmured, leaning against the nearby rail. "That's for sure." It continued to storm, lightning flashing in the distance behind the man. In the bright light, just for a moment, Christine thought she saw something other than a man. "I'm spying on you for a friend." "Right," the woman frowned. "Forgive me if I'm not relieved." Chuckling, the man held his hands up in surrender. "I am not an enemy, I can promise, though I see my words mean little at the moment," Ashma mused. "No, I am here to deliver a message." Christine, feeling fidgety and nervous, wrung her hands. Uh-huh. She was only half listening. Something about this man put her on edge. "And what's that?" The man opened his arms, reached under his jacket, and brought out a scroll. Even in the rain, it did not get wet. Hesitantly, Christine reached towards it. Ashma shoved it into her hands, and a sudden itch burned her. She tried letting go of it, but was unable. "What the? It would be no good if you lost it before you could read it." Ashma smirked. "It's a contract." "Contract?" Irritated, Christine frowned and angrily gestured to the man. "Look, demon, because I don't know any human with eyes like that. Leave me alone. I've got enough immortal badasses bugging up my life already." In response, Ashma merely laughed. "Spirited. My master said you would be." Grinning, the man didn't seem the least put off by her words. "We're not trying to bug your life. We're merely trying to guide you." Or are we having a has asthma party? I do. Supposedly, I was diagnosed with asthma, and then they decided they think I just have small lungs. So who knows? I don't like being lied to or kept in the dark. A different kind of glimmer came to the demon's eyes, and a kind of... Why that? A kind of... I could have just said... A predatory smirk came to his lips. I had to say, and a kind of predatory smirk came to his lips. Of course, Ashma murmured, his voice like velvet. A shiver trailed down Christine's spine. I could never deny a woman. That sounds really weird. About an hour of not hearing from Christine, Dante began to feel a little worried. He read her note again. She hadn't said how long she'd be gone or where, but he had a bad feeling. About that time, his cell rang. Dante answered and was surprised to hear Lucia shouting into the receiver. "Dante," she shouted, "I'm trailing the demon." Immediately, the man switched mentalities. "Has he done something? Where are you?" "We're downtown near the bar. He's revealed its demonic aura. He's revealed his demonic aura. You can probably sense it. He's got a human with him." Dante's eyes widened. "Do you know who?" "Can't tell. I'm too far away. I can only feel them." "I'm on my way." Dante was halfway to his bike by this time. "Don't move in unless he threatens someone. I'll be there soon." With a click, he shoved his phone into his pocket, let out a curse, and hit the road. Ashma's change of attitude disturbed Christine somewhat, but she did not back down. Her family had made sure she knew a little about demon slaying, and she could hold her own. That's not at all what I set up in the previous stories. How did I forget so badly? Still, the raw power radiating off of this one, it chilled her to the bone. I've got to be fully alert here. More lightning crashed and thunder rumbled as they stood on the rooftop. The wind began blowing wildly. "So what's the deal here?" Christine shouted. The smirking demon crossed his arms. "It's simple. My master would like to entrust you with some valuable information." Ashma began, eyes fluttering between dull yellow to cat-like and violent. "Sounds terribly one-sided. What's he get?" Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. Christine's stomach was wound in knots. "Giving you knowledge will be reward enough for him. He simply hopes you will act on it, and he believes you will." Even more confused than before, Christine glanced at the scroll. "And this?" "The final deal. My master reveals to you a certain truth only he knows. In return, take this information and use it as you see fit." The demon laughed at the baffled look on her face. "Here we go with the Spanish. Oh boy, I hope there's no actual Spanish speakers in the chat who can laugh at me for how badly I created Spanish from my high school Spanish classes. But let's see what I created, and I'm gonna say it so badly, I apologize. Okay, I think I get what I was trying to say, but I wrote, "Haha, sons todos humanos divirtiendo, tan como usted, señora pequeña." And Google translates that as, "Haha, they are all human having fun as..." I guess the idea was, are all humans as fun as you, little lady? But I have a feeling I did not translate that, I did not Spanish that appropriately. I failed Spanish too. I failed French, Spanish, and Latin. But I eventually think I got a D in Latin, and that was enough to graduate, and that's all I wanted. Oh, God. Yeah. So bad, so bad. After letting out a quick, happy stream of Spanish, "Why is this happy stream?" Ashma addressed her again. "It will benefit him that he tell you this great secret. At least hear him out. Afterwards, should you decide not to act on it, more Spanish. Eso es lo, you go home. If you do..." I'm just throwing Spanish in there like I speak it, and I don't. Let's see what this says. That is what. Should you decide not to act on it, that is what. You go home. What is that? That's not at all anything. That's nothing. I think I was trying to say, that's fine. That's okay. Why did I try and use Spanish when I knew I was failing? Why did I try this? At least Latin's a dead language. It can't be that. Most people don't know Latin. It's dead. Why would I try and use a living language? "Then I signed this thing?" Christine held it up. Ashma nodded. "And my master will aid you in getting a sweet revenge that has been long in the making." Christine's eyes widened as she realized. Vengeance. Oh, God, here we go. "Conseguir venganza es siempre..." I remember siempre meant always. You see, the Spanish, I know some of it. The class was not a total waste. Conseguir venganza es siempre el motivo, no es señor. I'm guessing that's something about vengeance being a motivation. I'm gonna assume that's what I was trying to say. Getting revenge is always the reason. Okay, so yeah, something about vengeance being. Oh, God. Oh, no, she says that. Okay. Christine's eyes widened as she realized, oh, vengeance, now I see, she says the Spanish. Ashma let out a deep, lumbering laugh as the woman showed off her high school level Spanish skills. Skills. Shall you speak to my master? The woman waited for a moment. Not without Dante, she finally muttered. He's my bodyguard. I won't talk to your boss without him. Ashma listened and sighed. More Spanish. Maldice, which I guess is like bad. Something it has mal in it. Mal is bad, right? God, I'm so sorry to the Spanish language. I'm so sorry. Curse, I guess. I don't know. Here I thought we'd get through this whole affair without the use of force. Hearing that, Christine raised her fists. I'm not helpless, buddy. Amazingly huge, beautiful black wings suddenly appeared behind Ashma, whose eyes were brilliantly gold now. You might as well be, more Spanish, afronte a senora. Afronte a, well, senora's woman. Face lady? Face lady? Face lady? What did I think I was saying? Face lady? What does that mean? What does that mean? What was I trying to say? I don't know why that's so funny. Okay. The enormous wings kept spreading out and up, as tall as the man and twice as long. His hair grew longer, softer, his smile spreading into a fanged grin. Shit. Christine glanced back to the ladder. She had to get off the roof. Those wings would be useless in the back alleys. She spun round and raced across the wet roof, thunder deafening her, only to feel her feet leave the ground as arms wrapped round her waist. Christine screamed, but it was no help, as the ground became more and more distant. Face it, lady? Okay, maybe that's what I was trying to say. What was it? You might as well be helpless. Face it, lady. Okay, but that's not like how people talk, though. God. Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay. Let's see. Next picture. Where's my... Oh, I keep moving my screen. There we go. That's the next picture. Meanwhile, on the ground, a familiar engine was roaring through the streets. Dante, eyes scanning the area, felt the presence of a demon, who was no longer bothering to hide his demonic power, but now, being so much closer, he could sense the other person. Christine! Snarling, Dante turned his bike and revved, spinning across the water down the street Ashma was flying above. His eyes flashed red, fangs growing as he chased after them. Christine could hear his demonic roar from above. Dante! The woman could feel them going higher up and knew he would not catch her. She did the only thing she could think to do. His name is Ashma. He works for some master that wants revenge. Ashma knocked her out in the back of the neck, and Christine was out. A moment later, he turned and smirked down at Dante, and winked as the darkness swallowed both of them up. Dante's bike slid across the water as he came to a halt, breathing hard. Damn it! The man cursed. He threw his helmet to the ground. So hard it broke into pieces. Since when does Dante wear a helmet? He's a demon. I don't think he wears a bike helmet. The demon, eyes totally red, roared at the sky. Damn it! Footsteps came through the storm towards him as Lucia approached. Dante had begun to pace angrily, fists clenched. I'm so damn tired of this fucking Sherlock mystery shit, Dante snarled, eyes red. Just point me at the bad guy and let me kill something, damn it. He kept pacing. Then he made a sudden stop and stormed towards his friend. Did you know Christine's got this mother of a scar on her back? Somebody's name? It's one of her family. These Moss people have been fucked up for centuries. They've got ties to demons, one of these freaking weird cults or something. Lucia listened patiently as Dante paused again, grimacing angrily and breathing hard. I want to protect her. I can't stop this family. I can't stop this demon. I can't even get her out of her shell half the time. Finally, he put a hand to his head. What the hell am I doing? I don't even know where to start. He looked at her, and Lucia felt it tug her heartstrings. She'd never seen him so desperate. I've never fought an enemy like this. I don't know who I'm supposed to target. How am I supposed to protect her when I don't know who or what's after her? After his tirade was over, the two stood in the rain, Lucia allowing Dante to collect himself. I think we should start out with this name. Demons with actual names are rare, so it probably won't be hard to find him listed in the history somewhere. Talking to the family might help. Any relatives who might be on our side? Lucia wondered. Dante, after a pause, reached into his pocket. He removed his cell phone, pulled up the received calls list, and looked up a number. In a moment, he was calling it back, phone on his ear. Lucia walked away to her bike, heading off to do more research, as Dante began a conversation on the phone. Yeah, this is Dante again. We need to talk. An hour later, Dante pulled his bike up in front of an old house, hidden by trees in the older part of town. The rain was still pouring from the sky. The little house seemed trapped in an earlier time, with the porch light floating through the screen door. Someone was standing in the open doorway, framed by light, waiting for him. Come on in, Gary Young murmured, eyes dark and voice low. He headed inside. Dante hesitated, a piercing guilt attacking his gut. It was a rare moment when his confidence failed him, but currently it was. Eventually the man got over his nerves and stepped into the porch, removing his soaked jacket and helmet again. The helmet he broke. Remember he broke a helmet that he doesn't wear? He doesn't wear helmets, but he wore one and he broke it, and now he's wearing it again. Before going into the house, I was really all about some motorcycle safety. Trying to take a bath out there, Gary mumbled. Dante let out a small chuckle that didn't really reach his eyes. The two men were in the kitchen, where 2 mugs of coffee sat, black. Gary sat on the far side beneath a dim lamp, and gestured to the other side. Take a seat. Dante, a much larger man, settled awkwardly on the stool, eyes down. Water dripped off of him onto the floor. The two were quiet for a moment. Gary examined Dante with a small smile. Before glancing down at his coffee, he was rubbing the mug nervously. I'll do everything I can. I'll tell you what I know, but it's not much, Gary mumbled. Dante felt his guilt triple. The two met eyes, and Gary let out one last sigh. First, I guess I should say, I'm not Christine's father. Dun, dun, dun! That is the end of chapter 11, and now we are to the last chapter. We're going to take a quick break, because I have got to get some more water, and then we will finish this. We'll be right back. All right. Well, the dog is right at my door. You were fine. I wish you'd sleep. All right. And we're back. Ugh. So here we are, the last chapter. It will not all come together and finish in this chapter because I never finished this story. But having reread it, I know what I was going for, and I will explain some of the things that don't get covered. But first, we're gonna read the rest of this chapter, and then I'll do a little explanation. And hello, Zach. Thanks for joining us. Move that there. All right. Whew. Here we go. Gradually. Oh, wait. We need to go to the next picture first. There we go. Gradually, Christine felt consciousness creep in as her blurry dreams crept away. She really knew she was awake when a monster of a migraine hit her full force. Cursing, the woman slowly sat up and rubbed her head. Buenos dias. I know I got that Spanish right. That's easy Spanish. God. Christine snapped up, swiping at the direction the sound came from, eyes furiously wide. The speaker leapt away gracefully. As her vision cleared, Christine glowered at the crouching form of Ashma. The woman sneered. Fuck you. The demon merely laughed as Christine stood on wobbly feet. A pleasure to wake in the morning, are you? I wouldn't mind finding out how much of a pleasure. Christine's eyes flitted back to him, expressing disgust, but the demon winked. Where the hell am I? Hell, actually, Ashma smirked. Christine's face fell, eyebrow twitching. I should have known. The decor around her gave it away. Dark, craggy walls of rock tinged with blood, reaching out into the never-ending darkness. The two of them were in a small cavern near a dead campfire. My master's home is not far from here. I can make the flight, and then you can speak to him. I promise it won't be long before you're back in your own world again. Christine pointedly ignored him, standing and stretching her legs. When she did glance his way, he smiled kindly and she frowned. Don't try and play nice. I know what you are. You know what Dante is too, but you seem to play nice with him. Ashma's smile became a grin when Christine became red-faced. I told you I've been spying on you. That's why you've been in town so long. You've been watching me. Of course. And your devil hunter boyfriend did not find out because I did not need to stalk you or use some other crude means to learn more about you. The demon stood, body seeming to unfold, and Christine felt a spark of primal fear hit her when he reached his full height. He could see that in her eyes, looming purposefully with a playful smirk. Biting her lip, Christine backed away. Fine, let's make this quick. The man obliged by immediately wrapping an arm around her waist and bursting forward, flying out of the tunnel with lightning speed. Christine would have screamed, but bit her lip to keep from doing so. A moment later, they were in the free air, hundreds of feet above the damned earth. Christine glowered at her captor. You know you're a dick, right? He shrugged. It's in the job description. The rest of the flight was awkward and quiet, and Christine remained stiff, limbs frozen in place. Ashma didn't seem to notice, and before long they were making a soft land on frozen ground. Feet safely on the floor, Christine jumped away from him, crossing her arms. She took a look around. This part of hell was very different from the rest, or at least from the archetypal view of what hell looked like. It was entirely frostbitten. Ice covered everything, and large spikes of it shot up into the sky. A mansion loomed ahead, a sheet of ice running over its entire surface. Cold permeated the air. Shivering, Christine rubbed her arms and headed for the door. Surely inside the damned abyss of hell would be warmer. It was not. Chagrined and pissed off, Christine turned and immediately grabbed onto the demon's jacket. Apparently this demon has a jacket. She stole it, setting it on her own shoulders, and they were off. She just stole a jacket from a demon. Okay. The inside of the mansion was dark, quiet, foreboding, with an architectural style that was clearly Gothic. Floorboards creaked, and the ceiling was lined with cobwebs. This place is designed like a bad Halloween movie set, she mumbled. They kept going down the same long hallway, long after Christine had expected a turn to appear. They never moved from that hallway. She tried not to dwell on the strained length of it, since they were, in fact, in hell. Finally, they came to a pair of double doors, one with a demon carved into it, the other an angel. But the angel had been attacked by a knife, it seemed, as the carving was destroyed. Christine stood in the front of the doors, hesitating. Excuse me. She sighed. Let's get this over with. Ashma stepped ahead of her, bowed, and opened the door with the demon upon it. Slowly, Christine stepped in, eyes on the angel. How beautiful it must have been before someone crudely decimated it. Inside was almost total darkness. Christine stood near the door, unsure of moving forward, when the voice spoke. Welcome. The woman frowned. Who the hell are you? The light of a fire dimly began, lifting the darkness in the room. Christine could vaguely see an armchair turned away from her in front of the fireplace. I have many names. The woman snorted. That's a line in every horror movie. Oh, God, no. Oh, God. We're now using Hebrew. How many languages will I decimate? How many languages will I commit crimes in? I'm committing language crimes. Oh, good. Okay. I thought so, but I wasn't 100%. This is proof. The Hebrew that I use translates into Samael, which means this is Satan. She's speaking to Satan. I'm crying. Christine is clearly far more badass than any of us realize. She might be the most badass character ever written. God. Oh my God, naturally it had to be Satan, right? God, okay. It's written in Hebrew, and I cannot pronounce Hebrew, so we're gonna ignore that. Somehow, Christine immediately knew how to pronounce this foreign and ancient word. And what does so-and-so, blah, 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 want with me? The man did not turn or stand. He remained seated, but she could see a charred hand resting on the armchair, old and frayed. I wish simply to offer you a choice. Christine stepped slightly closer, but before she could get much closer, Ashma appeared and laid a hand on her shoulder. You have always questioned your past and what happened with your family. You only remember some of your childhood. The truth of that statement made Christine uncomfortable. In fact, before high school, she could remember very few times she spent at her grandfather's mansion, 1 or 2 blurry memories. You wonder and are unsure, and I love to play devil's advocate. Stop being all mysterious and shit. Just get to the point. The man's hand moved again. It was sickeningly twisted and spoiled by age and burns. You are right. Here is the point. The secret to what you are missing in your life is in the museum in the town you just left. Museum? Christine asked. Yes, it is a small stone, smaller than your hand, and the color red. It will reveal all you wish to know. I could simply tell you, but perhaps you had better learn for yourself. There is more. I wish to make a deal. Ashma lifted his hand and snapped the scroll in the air. It fell open in front of Christine, a good few paragraphs long, with the empty signature line at the bottom. And what is this promising? The hand on the armchair gripped the fabric tightly. It promises that Bartholomew Moss will die. The woman startled. Hell no. And why not? He's my grandfather. Is he? The woman growled. Stop messing with me. Swear upon your life that eventually, before the clock of your life ends, Bartholomew Moss will die. On my end, I swear to you, in return to save the life of someone you care for infinitely more. What? Christine crossed her arms. Don't talk in circles. In the future, someone you love will be in danger. I can prevent that. Who? The law of fate forbids me from telling you. Christine's heart stopped. Choosing between her grandfather and someone nameless that she loved? Would it be her father or Madison or... She realized something then. Swear upon your life. If she agreed to this bargain, and the demon saved her loved one, but she didn't make sure her grandfather died, she would be the one to suffer. Her grandfather would be alive, and so would her loved one. Sure, she was mad at her grandfather, but that was different from killing him, so she could save them both. It wasn't like she'd been living for much of anything anyway. Perhaps this way, she murmured, my life will have meaning. A feathered pen appeared in Ashma's hand. Do you agree? Tentatively, Christine nodded. I accept. The pen pierced Christine's arm sharply and she winced. Ashma removed it and handed her the feather pen, blood dripping down it. She took it and wrote her name upon the contract in her own blood. It is done. The pen disappeared as soon as Christine had finished writing. Her name moved on the paper, turning dark black. The rest of it became the same, as if invisible fire was running up the letters, singeing the document. Congratulations, you just made the best decision of your life. Ashma winked at her. She shoved him away. Oh, there's more Hebrew. Take her back, so-and-so. Take her to the place she was found. Alright, so let's see what this dude's name is. Oh, man. I thought so. Oh my god. I think they reveal it in the story, so I won't say this one, but I also gave him a appropriate demon name, of course. Oh, man. Ashma nodded, my lord. The hand returned to her shoulder, and before Christine could shove him away again, the world shifted. Like a curtain lifting off her eyes, Christine found herself in the human world again. She stumbled, but Ashma caught her. Bit different, isn't it, between the two worlds? Be careful. Again he winked, but Christine pointedly ignored him. I know this place. She stood slowly, still dizzy, and glanced around. The familiar gray carpet, the glass display cases. They stood in the museum. Here is where you will find an artifact capable of revealing your greatest secret, Ashma murmured. It does a great many things. Tonight it will open the door to your past. He nodded at her and stood still. Christine glanced forward. Well, where is it? He merely nodded, as if to say, go find it. The woman was suspicious, but complied. She stepped nervously forward and began looking around. Whew. Dante sat in Gary Young's kitchen, feeling very much like a child again for the first time in years. You're not her father? The man shook his head. I'm not. I don't know much about the ordeal, but Christine's father was a man that Bartholomew Moss despised. I'm sure you know how that family is. They're closed-minded, like some sort of secret club. Christine's mother was raised in that world. Marilyn was quiet. I went to school with her. She arrived at school every day in a limousine with armed guards. She was the resident rich kid, and we all hated her for it. But really, she wasn't proud. She was just horribly off. Like she didn't know how to talk to people. I was one of the few she would even say hello to. We ended up going to the same college, too, so I was around when Christine's first relationship went downhill. I suppose she had had enough of her family. She ran away with some guy she met from out of town. There was a huge manhunt for her. The cops, the local militia, the family's guards were all scouring the streets. The way it was, you'd think the president's daughter had gone missing. When they finally found her, she was 3 months pregnant. The cops handed her screaming and fighting back to her family and arrested the man for kidnapping. Of course, she was old enough to make her own choices, and it was hardly a kidnapping, but I'm sure more than half those cops had been giving some incentive to arrest him. Bartholomew had that much influence, especially back then. They took her home, and she remained there for months. Nobody saw her. I was worried, so I kept trying to sneak into the mansion to find her. Everyone seemed upset and tense. One day, Bartholomew found me. I was sure I was about to be arrested on the spot, but he did the most shocking thing. Would you like to marry my daughter? Well, I'd been in love with her since before I could remember, but I certainly didn't want her father asking me, and I wanted her to be happy. They brought me to her, and I could see she wasn't. She was more withdrawn than usual. The baby was only a month or two away then. Sadness permeated the air around her, and I felt bad just looking at her. She looked at me, and she grabbed my hand and said, "Don't leave me with them." That was all it took. So, we were married in the smallest and strangest ceremony I'd ever seen. Only my mother and father, her family, and a few others were there. Marilyn was crying the whole time. Afterwards, her family brought us upstairs and led us to a large room, shut the doors behind us, and I found myself in the biggest bedroom I'd ever seen. They wanted us to celebrate our union, but she was in no state for it, still crying. We never did anything. When the time came for the baby to be born, I was right there with her. She latched onto me again. Don't leave me with them. I promised I never would, but the family's bodyguards forced me to break that promise. I fought back, but I'm not exactly the strongest man. They took me from the room, out of the mansion, all the way back to the city. I hopped back into a taxi cab and went back, but when I got there, I couldn't find the place. It was gone. It would be months before I saw my child or my wife. Marilyn looked dead on her feet the next time I saw her, but the baby girl was beautiful, the happiest child. When I walked into the room, Marilyn handed her to me and walked away. I knew then more than ever the woman I loved had been destroyed by her own family. After that, I rarely saw her smile, hardly heard her talk, and she walked like someone with no reason to be alive. She loved her child, I knew, but she hardly touched her. I was so confused, and the family never told me anything. We tried for many years, but when my kid turned 8, we divorced. Marilyn left, and I never saw her again. The man fell quiet. his hand circling his cup. I knew then the Moss family was troubled, and I vowed I wouldn't let Christine get swept up into it. A sad chuckle followed, and Gary glanced down. I failed at that. Miserably. The summer before high school? Dante muttered. They came to my house and grabbed her, Gary spat. Walked right in like they owned it, took my daughter, and drove off. I fought, but they kept me back, and Christine, despite the strangeness of it, trusted her grandfather enough to go with them. Poor girl. They drove off, and I went after them, but once again, I could never find the mansion. Just gone. How'd she come back? Gary turned away. There's a part of this story I would hate to tell. I suppose it will come out eventually, but it's hers to share. She showed up at my door one night and cried. My worst fears as a father had been realized. The family had broken her spirit, too. She was in the hospital for months, and we were in court for months after that. Bartholomew won with ease. It hurt Christine so badly to see her grandfather choose to save the face of the family rather than side with his granddaughter. What did they do? Dante asked, but Gary shook his head. I can't tell. It's not my place. I doubt Christine would tell you either. Maybe one day, he sighed. The two fell into silence. Dante had his eyes on the table, his hands fidgeting. What about the fire? Fire? Broke out when Christine was a kid, I guess, Gary said. It was one of those summers. Most of the family was there, and it killed about half of them. Barty managed to rebuild the mansion, but for 4 or 5 years the summer trips ended. The next one was the one before high school. Hasn't been another one since until now. Is there anything else you can think of? Any clues? Gary shrugged. I don't know what would be of use to you. There is this, I suppose. He stood and walked to the stairs. Come on. Dante sprung up from his seat as if he'd been reprimanded and hurried after. They went upstairs and entered a bedroom. It was Spartan, with a bed and table and a few things decorating it. A doll on the bed, a poster of bands on the walls. 5 for fighting. Her old bedroom, Gary explained. He moved to the dresser, leaned down and took out a book. She left this when she moved out. I don't think she remembers it's here. He lifted the hefty book and handed it to Dante. It was old leather with a large seal on the front, a snake eating its own tail, and there was an inscription beneath it in ancient Hebrew. It burned to touch. Dante winced but held on anyway. Let me guess. Good old Grandpa gave her this? Gary nodded. For her 3rd birthday. Dante glanced up in surprise. He shook his head and tried to turn the pages, but they wouldn't open for him. This is really powerful. Not something for a kid. I'm afraid I really wouldn't know, but I think you'll be able to figure it out. Gary smiled kindly and Dante felt his heart burn. Don't blame yourself. You've been trying more than anyone to help my daughter, and I thank you for that. The man turned red in the face. I promise I'll fix this. I'll stop whatever madness is going on around here. Gary nodded. I'll hold you to that, young man. He smiled, and Dante returned it. Suddenly, Dante's phone rang. He pulled it out of his pocket and checked the number. A friend of mine. Hopefully they found something. He opened it. Lucia, anything? She was currently at the library, poring over a table of old texts. Found it. The name Ashma was a little ambiguous, but it was easy to discern once I found the origin. It's Hebrew. Dante glanced in the book to his hand, which had Hebrew on it. Okay, what's it mean? Well, Lucia chuckled darkly, means we're in shit. Way over our heads. Dante, this isn't something you or I have dealt with before. This is ancient. What, like Mundus? Way more. These guys have been around since the beginning. Confused, Dante frowned. What was more ancient than the damned king of hell? Explain. Think biblical, Dante. This guy Ashma is Ashmedai, Asmodeus, one of the 7 princes of hell. We're talking the original war of dark and light. Wait. Dante glanced at Gary, who looked concerned. Holy shit. Literally. We're talking the real God versus Satan war, and somehow you've stepped into it. You've really got to learn to keep your nose clean. Yeah, but then I'd be out of a job. He smirked a little, feeling some of his usual confidence returning. We'll talk more later. I gotta go. He hung up after saying goodbye and turned to Gary. Thanks for the help. I think we've got a lead, and I promise I'll bring Christine home again. Dante turned to go, but Gary held onto his shoulder. Thank you. And he sighed. When you find my daughter, please. Dante watched his eyes grow weary. Be careful. Don't let her fade away like her mother. The agony was clear on the man's face. Dante gave a slow nod. I will. Christine wandered aimlessly through the museum. She had gone through Impressionist art, Monet, seen the statue of David, but still had yet to find the gem she was looking for. Apparently this place has a fucking statue of David in it. Okay, this is... Stupid demon could have pointed me in the right direction, the woman mumbled. She now stood within the Rodin section of the museum, which consisted of many different statues and carvings. They were nice, but Christine really just wanted to find this stupid rock and go home. The woman turned a corner and came to a room with only one display in it. There it was, obviously the red gem. Not just because it felt right, but it was small and red. Christine stepped towards it slowly, nervous all of a sudden. Her heart thumped in her chest and her instinct screamed turn back, but she kept going. The strange gem seemed to be calling to her. Dante walked back outside into the night and the rain, moving towards his bike when he felt something, the power of a great demon appearing on the scene, and a human. "Christine!" The man leapt on his bike, cranked the engine, and raced off into the shadows. Her hand was touching the glass. The red gem seemed to shimmer with light that wasn't in the room. She looked up. There were security cameras, but Christine had this strange feeling they couldn't see her. So, slowly, she took hold of the glass and lifted it, unafraid of leaving fingerprints. It came off easy, and she leaned over to set it on the ground, just as she stood back up and reached out to touch the gem. "Christine!" The woman spun around and shocked. It was him! Dante! Christine almost ran to him, but remembered something. She had signed her life away to a demon. What would Dante think of that? What would he think of her? She backed away behind the pedestal. Dante entered the room, eyes wide. "Come on, let's get going before that guy comes back." He hurried over. But Christine backed away from him, shaking her head. She thought, "I'm not worth your time." She winced. "Don't touch me." Dante flinched like he'd been hit. "Christine?" She shook her head. "Just go." "I'll be dead soon anyway," she thought. "Maybe if you go now, you won't mourn me." "What the hell's the matter with you? And why are you doing this?" He glanced around and caught sight of the gem. "What the hell's this?" "Don't know," she admitted. Dante moved towards it, lifting his hand to touch it, but when he came close, it burned him, and he snatched his hand away. Powerful stuff. He glanced back at her. "Don't tell me you were going to take this." "I've got to," she muttered. "I need it." "For what?" Christine looked at him. "None of your business." "What the hell?" The demon crossed his arms. "Why are you being such a jerk? Why are you always messing with me? What, trying to save your life?" Dante held up his hands. "You know what? Whatever. Do what you want." "I will." She strode past him, but he grabbed her arm. "Look, it's really not a good idea." At the front of the building, Ashma perked up. He cursed violently and disappeared, reappearing across the hall. "Stay away from her." Dante turned to face him, and in that moment, Christine reached with her free hand. The man noticed just too late as her fingers touched the warm stone, and he reached out to stop her. Dante's hand rested on top of hers. Ashma saw, and his eyes went wide. "No!" It was too late. Both hands touched the gem, and in a flash, its colors switched from red to blue. In a bright flash of light, both Christine and Dante were flung to opposite sides of the building, tossed through walls, slinking across the floor. Christine's body hit the bottom of a tall statue, which shook and then slid off its pedestal. The work of art, easily a few 100 pounds heavy, fell on top of her. Dante hit the ground bleeding. His head throbbed, his bones ached. The man winced and stood. "Must have been stronger than I realized for it to hit that bad," he thought, trying to stand. But he couldn't. Though it was only a bit of a wound, he couldn't move. Every time he tried, his head throbbed, his back seared with pain. He tried again, and a scream escaped him. God damn! Why did it hurt so much? Across the room, Christine was unconscious beneath the heavy statue. Dante managed to sit up a little and saw her body. His eyes went wide. "Christine!" Her hand twitched. The man's breath caught in his throat. Her hand and her arm began to move. Christine murmured. She sleepily tried to push the statue off herself. And Dante cursed himself and tried to stand again. If he didn't get up, the weight of that statue would kill her. He had to help, but he just couldn't. Yet the statue didn't kill her. Dante watched, astonished, as Christine lifted her arms and began pushing the enormous pieces of broken stone off her chest, then her legs, and then she stood as if she hadn't just been crushed by a rock slide. She wasn't even bleeding. Her legs were wobbly, but she was able to brush herself off as if nothing happened. Dante stared wide-eyed, and his eyes got wider as they rose and saw her face. Her hair was silver. Christine looked at him, and her eyes flew open. Your eyes!" The man slowly, tentatively lifted his hand, which was trembling, and touched his face. He managed to lift his bangs a little and looked at them. They were dark brown and coated with blood. "Dante!" The man glanced up in time to see Ashma grinning, floating in the air between them. A fist flew towards his face. Leave him alone. Christine was beside him in a second, holding the fist back with ease. Ashma grinned at her. This really isn't what the Laster had planned, but what a twist. He threw his head back and laughed. Outside, sirens blared. Christine's head flew up. You'd better get going. Ashma faded away, leaving naught but air. The woman frowned and turned to Dante. Her eyes flew open. Dante! To him, she was a blurry figure, and her voice sounded so far away. Dante, stay awake! Sleep had taken him by then, lulled by the blood loss, the wounds, and the sirens. And that is the end of the story I wrote in high school. So much, so many missing answers and running plot threads going against each other. But okay, here was the idea. So her family is this family of hunters, right? They've always been hunters. They've always been, whatever. And then Mama goes and falls in love with a demon. And not just any demon. She falls in love with Satan. I don't know. She falls in love with Satan. And gets pregnant and eventually gets caught. I guess, I don't know, the demon hunters or something finally caught up with them or something. And it trapped him or something. They separated them and took Mama back. And they were going to try and, kill the baby or whatever, and it didn't work, and baby was too powerful. So they seal the powers inside of Christine. So she's totally normal, supposedly. Well, doesn't work so well, because she's basically the child of Satan, lots of powers in her, and that's why all these, bad things happen, where the house burned down, all these different things, and so she keeps having to come back every year to this house because they keep having to redo the seals on her, and it's horrible and painful, and it's part of why she has no memories of her childhood, because she was in pain all the time and all this bad crap with her family, and her mom is basically catatonic from the ritual they did to her, basically messed with her. The name on her back was one family member figuring out she was part demon and trying to use her in a ritual to become powerful himself, and failing. He was caught, but the family kind of tried to cover it up, and that really messed with Christine, because her family just covered up this horrible, instead of letting the guy go to trial, and so that was kind of that story was basically her family sealed her powers away and all that. So the rock was a kind of a conduit. It takes things in. The demons don't want to touch it because it'll take their demon power from them. The idea was, if Christine touches it, it'll take the seal, it'll set her free. And so down in hell, Daddy Satan's like, well, I'm Satan. I can't go and I guess there was a law that he can't interfere with human, he can't kill Bartholomew himself. He's not allowed. He can't, save the girl. He can't do any of this crap. Bye, Pablo. Thanks for joining us. So he has to have humans do this stuff. And so that's the whole thing where he's trying to say, you will do this and then you will kill him, because he wants that stuff to happen. And presumably when Christine knows the truth, that is what Christine will want, presumably. So that's the whole idea behind getting her to touch the stone which appeared in the very first chapter, but which clearly I hadn't had any of this really planned to this point. But she touches it with Dante, which accidentally makes them switch. So now he's human and she's a demon. And so from there, they were going to have to flee and recuperate and kind of deal with the fact that now Dante is sort of the weaker one, the one that's in need of rescuer protection, and then she has to deal with the fact that she has power, and they're trying to escape her family and deal with all that, and eventually there is a showdown between her and her grandfather where they figure out eventually why the switch happened, and they have to go back and get the rock and have to switch it back, and she becomes a half demon because she was one. The seal breaks and she confronts her grandfather about, hey, you did this fucking horrible thing to me, and he tries to fight them with horrible demon powers, and he opens a door, which was a mistake, because now that the door is open, the demons can come get him. He's dragged to hell because he's horrible. and they live happily ever after and have half quarter demon whatever babies. And that was the story of the incredibly convoluted and very badly written all over the place story I wrote when I was 15. Thank you, Christian. Am I streaming anything later? Probably not. I have a bunch of family staying with us this weekend. I mean, if my cousin wants to play with me and play a game or something, we might, but probably won't. Depends. Tomorrow, I definitely won't be. Sunday is the big day-long charity stream, so we'll be back Sunday with something. As for this, for October, we're going to switch over to doing horror stories. Not all of them will be mine. It may be like short stories. I have a book of North Carolina legends and some ghost story stuff. I'm still reading through to see what I think is really good and what I want to share. And I may also be writing something as well. But the fanfic thing will take a back seat until after October. Thanks you, everyone, for joining me and for all the people that supported the channel during all these streams. It's been fun. The story's not quite as bad as I remember. There's clearly so many, like, it's obvious that I didn't plan any of this, that I kind of just wrote by the seat of my pants and was kind of dealing with my own issues through the story, which is fine. That's how you deal when you write. Like, Christine is very obviously just me as I was dealing with problems in high school and creating a character that I could feel like was powerful and awesome, and, you know, it's what I needed. This Mary Sue. I needed it right then. Everybody needs a good Mary Sue. Be sure to check out my website if you haven't. There's a new easy way to buy all my books and commission me for videos and such. The links are below. There's also should be a link to Christian Nava's book, Skeletons in the Rain, which is currently supporting our channel right now. You can buy it on Amazon in English and Spanish, and I promise the Spanish is better than my Spanish. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook if you want to keep more up to date with things, and you can join the Discord if you want to hang out and party all the time with the cool kids. I believe that's all of my updates right now. I have a P.O. box. I'm also going to be creating a wish list of stuff needed specifically for the channel so that people can send stuff there. And thanks again to Joe Kerr for the lovely presents. And I do believe that is everything. Oh, wait. There it is. It will not be continued unless I don't know, if I have free time in the future, maybe I'll try and put a bow on this, but that was the story. Thank you so much for joining me. Everyone have a great weekend, and I will see you at the least on Sunday for the charity stream. Bye.